And we are taking you out live to the White House, where President Trump is waking up this morning, hours after his address to a joint session of Congress. The president laid out his plans for a second term after his first 6 weeks in office, and he doubled down on his latest tariffs against Mexico, Canada, and China. Talked about ending the war between Russia and Ukraine and touted his moves to shrink the federal government and promised to fight inflation. The president covered a lot of ground in what is now the longest address to a joint session of Congress.
Joining us now to break it all down, what the president had to say to America and the joint session, Cal Jillson, political science professor at SMU. We appreciate you joining us this morning.
Good to be with you.
Now, given all the points the president hit during his address, what for you were the biggest takeaways?
Well, you have to evaluate Donald Trump's speeches on three dimensions. One is length. This was the longest speech given to a joint session of Congress in a very long time. And then you look at policy, as you just mentioned. He did talk about policy, but he made no new news really on policy last night. And then you look at it in terms of performance art, and performance art, he did really quite well. On policy, I think the jury is still out.
Well, let's talk about the plans and initiatives discussed in the address. So that affects Americans in their day-to-day lives, especially when it comes to issues like the economy. What do you expect to see?
Well, what the Trump administration believes is that by increasing energy production and decreasing government spending, that will spur the economy without inflation increasing. That is their goal. And if they achieve that goal, people will notice it in their everyday lives and they'll appreciate it. But many economists do not believe that policy will work, particularly that tariffs will not feed into inflation and increase it from here. So we'll see who's right.
He certainly pointed toward the previous administration when it came to some things that have not been fixed yet. The price of eggs is one that people like to talk about. You know, is there a grace period there, or how long until he starts having to wear some of those issues?
Yeah, again, the performance art part of it is important because he speaks in exaggeration all the time. When he's evaluating his own performance, it's better than any time in American history. When he looks at his opponent's performance, Biden and the Democrats, it is disastrous. It's tragic. It's terrible. There was a mess when I came into office. So he will have, and he's asking for a little bit of time in order to make the economy his, so it's performing up to expectations from his side. But people begin to look at the current president as responsible for current events, and they don't really get to say, I'm not responsible for 6 months, 9 months, whatever. They're responsible from the time they step behind that microphone and talk to a joint session of Congress.
Yep, sounds like the grace period is over. Okay, thank you, Cal Jillson. We appreciate your insight and update.